Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Justin, for that lead-in. Welcome. As just to reiterate Justin's sentiments, us Victorians would have loved to have been in the room with you today, but unfortunately, we haven't perhaps managed our situation down here as well as other parts in the country. So we're on the forum that many of us have become used to over the last 12 months in Zoom. So again, thanks, Juzzy, and welcome to everyone. Thanks to our sponsors. For those that don't know me, I'm Ross Boucher, General Manager of the ACA. I have a background in the protective coatings and concrete industry, perhaps over 30 years, and I know many people in that room. And in fact, I spent a lot of my time actually in Mackay and Gladstone region. I worked for a couple of companies, one where we had an office in River Street for many years. So I'm familiar to the area and wished I could have been there today. My talk is just following up from where Justin's left on about what his particular group has brought to the table for our industry. And it's the industry policy of applicator training and qualification. But first, I'll just start with a little bit about the ACA. We're a not-for-profit membership organisation where we disseminate information on corrosion prevention and all the other activities in our industry. Our aim is to manage and cost-effectively ensure health and safety by managing corrosion and assist society to manage the impact of corrosion, particularly on asset durability. And we do that through various mediums where our mantra is learn, connect to protect against corrosion. A little bit about our structure and how we're set up. As I said, we're a not-for-profit, so we're a membership organisation. We have a board that oversees the whole of the organisation. ACA head office management that sits there in the middle, which is the team that I lead. So we're all paid employees that run the day-to-day operations of the association. And essentially we're broken into two areas where we have the ACA branches. So we have branches in Victoria, Queensland, New South Wales, South Australia, Tasmania, Western Australia, and New Zealand. And oddly enough, we have one in Newcastle because it's such an old association. I think we've been around since 1958, and in those days, Newcastle, being the hub of steel production, had their own branch. And then we've got onto the right of the screen the technical groups. Now, I must point out that both these particular groups, the branches and the technical groups, are supported by our member volunteers. So, and these are the lifeblood of our association and actually a lot of where the work gets done. Head office, we just deliver on our strategic plan of getting out into industry, but these technical groups with their volunteer support do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. And as you see, that there's technical groups that cover a lot of industries. They can change from time to time because we try and represent industries that are current and in focus, perhaps infrastructure or some of those things that we're all talking about nationally these days. But I've highlighted the Applicator technical group because that's why we're here today, to talk about some of the work that this group's been doing, led by Justin. The Applicator technical group, Justin gave what the mission was, but just to reiterate some of the things that they do is they advocate on behalf of the coating applicator network around the country, Australasia, trying to improve the public perception of these labour-intensive trades, which, you know, blasting and painting is. Support contractor accreditation with a focus on quality systems, support training opportunities for the applicators, and development of career pathways for the applicators. And as Justin pointed out, with some of the award systems, supports through sponsorship programs and awards to contractors and applicators, you know, which helps ensure that we get quality project outcomes. But the discussion here is for the work that's been done with this particular group in the introduction of a new industry policy, the Applicator Training and Qualification. Now, why? Why do we need it? Well, this is, if you look at this diagram below here, you have a typical time or project process that goes to a coating application project, where there's a specification that's written, usually by a professional engineer or consultancy firm. Then we have the products, where the coating systems that's made by many of the manufacturers that are probably sitting in our room today, high-tech products, a lot of research and technology goes into those. Then we've got the application part of the program, which is why we're here to talk about this new industry policy. Then there's the inspection process. And ultimately, once all those groups have been brought together and achieved what they're trying to do in the process of the project outcome, we end up with what we want is durability of the coating system. But it's interesting that there's a lot of training and qualification that goes into all of those areas, except for the one that I've got highlighted in application. And that's why our group here, the Applicators Technical Group, has worked very hard to get a policy that can help address what we see as the shortfall in the whole process of trying to get a durable end result out of a coating system. You think about it, and it's probably the most crucial part of it for the successful outcome of a job. From a product manufacturer's perspective, unless his product is applied correctly by somebody that knows what they're doing, it's not going to be able to achieve what they designed the product for. So there's a lot reliant on this applicator part of the equation. And to be quite honest, been largely neglected for many, many years. I'm just going to give you an example. There's a couple of examples here of specifications that float around in the industry. And it turns, and when we're talking about the type of personnel that are going to be working on a coating project, and I just highlight some of those parts in it where, certifications for all inspectors and blasters and coating applicators. But it doesn't say, besides inspectors, what sort of qualifications are recognised as being recognised qualifications. They just simply say that to a recognised system, for example. And this next one, if it would come up, is one that's a current one from the water industry. And again, I highlight the fact that the applicator shall demonstrate that the personnel have the required industry certification, training, track records, and equipment in applying the nominated product. Well, what does that actually mean? What is the required industry certification? You go down to the coating inspector and it's quite succinct in what those certifications are. The inspector shall be certified by the Australasian Corrosion Association, NACE, or SSPC, and it goes on to actually state the levels for doing various forms of work. And yet here we are with perhaps the most important part of the puzzle. We don't actually have a recognised certification that's required under project specifications. So our group, led by Justin and his team, have developed this industry policy for applicator training and qualification. Now, it's a long document. I'm not going to go into the details of it all, but I'll just flick through these next couple of screens and it goes in. And there's one important part on this slide here on the right-hand side in the box where it says a specification clause that can be copied and pasted into documents like we saw on the previous two slides that, actually can state that there are some qualifications that can be recognised in the specification so that you can guarantee that you're getting people that are competent to be able to carry out the work. Now, this particular policy will be available for download on the ACA website. There'll be a link at the end of these slides to it, but there's been a lot of work go into this document. It lists a whole lot of different qualifications based on a point system for various things, whether it's concrete, whether it's steel, lead paint removal, all these things. So as I said, it's a fairly complex document. You need to be able to read it and you can address specific requirements from your applicator for your specific job requirements. It's a fantastic document. I recommend that you all, once it's available, download it. But how does it fit, and where is it going to fit? So the ACA ourselves, we have in supporting what the Applicator Technical Group is trying to achieve by developing career pathways for people in the broader corrosion industry, but in particular in the abrasive blasting and coating application part. This is some of the streams that we already have up and running, and as you can see, you know, we cover cathodic protection, there's coatings, there's coating inspection, general corrosion, you know, pipelines, OH&S, equipment, and we tend to, there's a lot of blank spaces on that where we intend to add specific competencies to our program over time, and as we see what the industry needs. But I've highlighted one there, and these aren't exclusive courses to the ACA, I must note, is that we as the industry body are recommending training, not just from what we can organise through the ACA, but for external third parties as well. And in particular, the next presentation will be around the Certificate 3 in Surface Preparation and Coating application that I've got highlighted there. So we see that as an important part of the career framework and certification pathway, and we're happy to promote anything that benefits the applicators and the corrosion industry more broadly in our framework. The aim of this policy is, you know, what are we trying to achieve? We're trying to achieve, set benchmarks of competency for applicators. In turn, that will help raise standards of workmanship within the industry. It will help drive consistency of application quality. It's also there to support, and it was interesting that Justin pointed out that on his committee that he had Eleonora Stepanova, who's the executive officer of the Pccp scheme. Now, for those that don't know about the Pccp scheme, it is essentially a quality management certification program run by the CSIRO that accredits coating applicator companies. What it doesn't do as part of that system, it doesn't recognise or state that that company meets the quality standards that are required, but not necessarily does that pass down that they have to have competency or certification of individuals that work for that company. So we're working with the CSIRO to have some of the aims of this policy and parts of this policy installed into that Pccp scheme over the long term. And the other aim is, you know, to help standardise some of the specifications that we see. You know, just some of the high-level benefits of the policy that we see for, you know, for the individual. It's certainly that they achieve a qualification, that they're recognised for their competency, and importantly establishes a career pathway for them as well. From companies, and that can be the contracting company, or it can be companies such as the coating suppliers, where, you know, it's the policy aims to represent quality assurance. In turn, that will in turn provide risk reduction, helps them remain compliant, and there's competency assurance. From an asset owner's perspective, and this is ultimately, you know, that's who we're trying to address, because they're the owner of the assets and they want them to be continually running and viable. It's an assurance of quality, again, risk reduction, and hopefully that you do things right with certified personnel, you're going to get a reduction in long-term maintenance costs. So what we can do, or what can we do? We encourage everyone to support the policy as number one. Where we can, we want to see the implementation of that policy, particularly into documentation. As I said, reference the policy in project documentation. support the qualification of applicators, and that's just, and that's supporting them whether you employ them or, through project documentation, and standardised specification clauses, i.e. the coding applicator that we referenced in the previous slides. So that's basically in a nutshell what the new policy is and what we're trying to achieve with it. As I said, it will be available for download via our website. If it's not up there already, it will be in the next few days, and we will actually be doing a small story on this that will have a link to it, the policy document via the ACA's website in the next couple of days. I encourage you all to reach out to the Applicator technical group. They're a great bunch of guys. They've done a lot of work. And if you can, get to the Newcastle conference, because their Applicator day is really well worth attending. So that's it from me. Feel free, you can send emails to, via the website, membership@corrosion.com.au. If you've got any questions, certainly you can send them via email from that website. There's phone numbers to contact as well. And as I said and highlighted in one of the earlier slides, that in that training pathways framework was that we support any training for applicators, whether it's something that's run through the Australasian Corrosion Association or outside entities. And our next speaker that I'm about to present is Mr. Ian Squire from TAFE New South Wales. And Ian's worked in painting and industry for over 30 years. He's been a TAFE teacher for 20 years, and he's currently the head teacher at TAFE New South Wales, where he leads a team of teachers, or 12 teachers and support staff, training almost 300 apprentices and trainees across 3 vocational trades in areas all over Australia. Ian has helped design and develop resources for the Cert 3 in Surface Preparation and Coding Applications course in its current format, and delivers this qualification with his team all over Australia. Ian holds trade qualifications in painting and decorating, industrial coatings, high-risk units and NACE. Additionally, Ian is a qualified workplace assessor and holds a Bachelor of Vocational Education and training from the Charles Sturt University, and he's worked all over Australia and the world, including the UK, Middle East. And on top of that, he's a wonderful bloke. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ian, and hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and I look forward to catching up with you later in the afternoon. Thank you.